"Your son didn't jump, sir." The boy said it from the far end of the bridge walkway, standing in the rain with both hands pressed flat against the front of his jacket, a gray hoodie once, before the color had washed out of it, across however many winters it had survived before it found him. It was 2 sizes too big. The sleeves came past his wrists. His jeans had a tear at the left knee that had been there long enough to have frayed at the edges. His sneakers were the kind that had been white before they were his, and before that someone else's, and before that possibly white again, and now they were the color of everything a street makes them. He was 10 years old, dark brown skin, close-cropped hair flattened by the rain, eyes that were looking at the man in front of him with the specific, unwavering steadiness of someone who has decided to say a thing and is not going to be moved from it by weather or by doubt. His name was Marcus Cole. He had been born 10 years ago in the east of the city, in a hospital that had since been converted to apartments, to a mother who had left before he was old enough to remember her face, without the photograph his grandmother kept on the dresser in the small bedroom of the apartment on Delaney Street. The photograph showed a young woman laughing at something off camera, her hand raised slightly as if she were about to say something. His grandmother had kept it on the dresser and had never said anything unkind about the woman in it, which Marcus understood, as he grew older, was its own kind of love. The love of not taking something away from a child that the child had never had. His grandmother's name had been Ruth. She had worked as a school dinner lady for 22 years. She had made soup on Sundays and had read to Marcus every night until he was old enough to read to himself. And then she had read beside him instead, both of them in the small living room with the lamp that needed a new bulb and the television they watched on Friday evenings. She had died 8 months ago, a stroke quickly in the hospital, without coming home again, and Marcus had been left in an apartment he could not pay for, with a social services system that was overloaded and slow, and with the practical knowledge that the world did not stop because the person who was your entire world had left it. He had found the bridge abutment in his second week on the streets. The east abutment of the Calder Street Bridge had a narrow ledge, 18 inches wide, sheltered from above by the bridge deck, protected on 2 sides by the concrete of the abutment itself. In rain, it stayed dry. In wind, it was sheltered. The warm air from a heating duct in the adjacent building's basement rose through a grate on the walkway above and filtered down in a way that was not warm exactly, but was less cold than the alternatives. He had arranged cardboard and a blanket he had found behind the laundromat on Prentice Street, and he had made of the ledge something that was not a home, but was, for the purposes of surviving, sufficient. He had learned the bridge quickly, the way light moved across its underside at different times of day, the sound of different kinds of traffic at different hours, the schedule of the maintenance worker who came on Thursday mornings, the 2 men who fished from the East End on Saturday afternoons, and the man in the long dark coat who walked to the middle of the bridge twice a week in the early morning and looked at the river. He had been watching that man for 6 weeks before the night James Ashford died. The man he was speaking to had not yet heard him. Or perhaps he had heard him and had chosen not to hear him, which was a different thing. The man was standing at the railing of the Calder Street Bridge, both hands gripping the wet iron, looking down at the river 40 feet below. He was 60 years old, perhaps 61, with the particular posture of someone who had spent decades in rooms where his posture mattered and whose body had retained the habit even now, at this railing, in this rain, at this hour. His coat was dark and expensive and completely soaked through. His silver hair was plastered to his forehead. He had no umbrella. He had been standing at this railing for 11 minutes, which Marcus knew because Marcus had been watching from beneath the bridge's east abutment for 11 minutes, counting, deciding. His name was William Ashford. 3 days ago, the papers had reported that his son, James Ashford, 26 years old, the only child of William Ashford and the presumed heir of Ashford Capital Group, had jumped from this bridge. The coroner had ruled it a suicide. The police had closed the case in 48 hours. The city had moved on in the way cities moved on, which was to say it had not moved on at all, but had simply placed the thing in a different pocket and continued walking. Marcus had been under this bridge the night James Ashford died. He had seen everything. "Your son didn't jump, sir," Marcus said again, louder this time, loud enough to cut through the rain and reach the man at the railing. William Ashford turned. He had not expected a child. He had been standing at this railing because he had needed to stand somewhere, and this was the place, the specific place, where the last thing that mattered to him had ended, and he had needed to be in the place where it ended, even though being there accomplished nothing and changed nothing, and he understood this and had come anyway. He had been standing there long enough that the rain had soaked through the collar of his coat and was running down the back of his neck, and he had stopped noticing it, the way you stopped noticing things when you were standing at the place where your son had died. He turned and looked at the boy. The boy was 10 years old, soaking wet, wearing a hoodie that had belonged to at least 2 people before him. He was standing in the rain without any apparent plan to get out of it. His expression was the expression of someone who had been working up to saying something for longer than the rain had been falling, and had finally said it, and was now waiting to see what happened next. "What did you say?" William said. "Your son didn't jump," Marcus said. "I was here. I was under the bridge. I saw what happened." William looked at the boy for a long moment. The rain fell between them in long straight lines. The river moved below, dark and indifferent. "You're mistaken," William said. His voice was the voice of a man who had decided the shape of what had happened and was not going to unmake that shape for a child in a wet hoodie on a bridge in the rain. The police investigated. The coroner was wrong, Marcus said, and the police didn't talk to me. He reached into the front pocket of the hoodie and pulled out something small. A button. No, not a button. A cufflink. Small, silver, shaped like a square with a letter engraved in the center. He held it out in his open palm. "I found this on the walkway, under where it happened. I've been keeping it." William Ashford looked at the cufflink in the boy's palm. He stopped breathing for a moment. He knew that cufflink. He had given his son a pair of them for his 25th birthday. Silver, initialed, from a jeweler on Pembridge Street that had been making things for the Ashford family for 30 years. He had watched his son put them on at dinner that same evening, the evening of the birthday, the last birthday. They were the kind of thing James would have been wearing the night he died. The police report had listed his personal effects. The cufflinks had not been among them. "Where did you find that?" William said. His voice had changed. "On the walkway," Marcus said. "About 4 feet from the railing, on the east side." He did not lower his hand. If he had jumped, the cufflink would have gone with him. Or it would have been at the railing. It was 4 feet back, in the middle of the walkway. He paused. People don't lose cufflinks 4 feet from railings when they jump. They lose them when someone grabs their wrist. William Ashford looked at the cufflink. Then he looked at the boy. Then he looked at the river. Then he said, "Come with me." There was a car at the south end of the bridge. Black, long, the kind of car that announced its owner's position without needing a sign. A driver named Gerard stood beside it, holding an umbrella he had not been asked to hold because William had not told him he was getting out of the car. He had simply gotten out of the car and walked to the bridge railing, and Gerard had followed at a respectful distance and held the umbrella and said nothing. When William came back down the walkway with a small wet boy beside him, Gerard looked at Marcus with a neutral expression that was the result of 22 years of driving powerful men and learning that unexpected things arrived in the back of powerful men's cars regularly, and that the correct response was always the same. He opened the rear door. Marcus looked at the car. He looked at the door. He looked at William. "I'm wet," he said. "So am I," William said. "Get in." Marcus got in. The seat was leather, dark, warm. The car had been running with the heat on for the 11 minutes William had been at the railing. Marcus sat on the edge of the seat, not leaning back, because his hoodie was soaked, and he had some instinct about not leaving the shape of himself on a seat like this. He held the cufflink in his closed fist. William got in beside him. Gerard closed the door and walked around to the driver's seat and did not start the car. The rain drummed on the roof. "Tell me," William said. Marcus looked at the back of Gerard's head behind the glass partition. He looked at the cufflink in his fist. He looked at William Ashford, who was 60 years old and soaking wet, and whose son had been dead for 3 days, and who was looking at Marcus with the specific attention of a man who has just been told the ground beneath him might not be what he thought it was. "I sleep under the east abutment," Marcus said. "There's a ledge. It stays mostly dry when it rains, and it's out of the wind. I've been there for about 4 months. William nodded. He did not say anything about this. "That night," Marcus continued, "it was cold, but it wasn't raining yet. I was trying to sleep. I heard voices on the walkway above me. Not loud. 2 voices. He paused. I couldn't hear the words at first. Then one voice got louder. Angry. The other one stayed quiet. He looked at the cufflink. I came out from the ledge. I didn't go up to the walkway. I stayed below, at the abutment. But from there I could see the walkway through the railing gaps. 2 men, one taller than the other. The taller one had his hand on the shorter one's collar. William's jaw tightened. The shorter one was trying to pull away. He grabbed the railing with both hands. I could see that clearly. He was holding on. Marcus pressed his lips together for a moment. And then the taller one. He had both hands on the shorter one's coat. He stopped. He looked at his fist. He lifted him. Over the railing. It wasn't a jump. Both his hands were on the railing until the last second. You don't hold on to a railing when you're jumping. You hold on when someone is trying to make you go over. The car was very quiet, the rain on the roof. Could you see their faces? William said. His voice was completely flat, which was the voice of a man keeping something contained. The one who went over, I saw his face briefly when he turned. He was young, dark hair. Marcus opened his fist and looked at the cufflink. When it was done, the other man bent down for a moment on the walkway. I think he was checking, making sure there was nothing left. He paused. He must have missed this. He closed his fist again. Then he walked to the north end of the bridge, and he went down the stairs to the street. The other man, William said. Can you describe him? Tall, maybe 6'2", broad. He was wearing a dark coat, long. He had light hair, not white, not gray, something in between. He walked with his right shoulder slightly forward, like one side was heavier than the other. Marcus looked at William. I've seen him before. William looked at him. Where? Here, Marcus said. On this bridge. He comes in the morning sometimes. Not every morning, maybe twice a week. He walks to the middle, looks at the river, walks back. I've watched him from the abutment. He paused. He always comes alone. He never talks to anyone. He just looks at the river. William looked at the back of Gerard's head. Gerard, he said. Sir. Drive. They drove for 20 minutes. The city moved past the windows in its nighttime configuration. The particular arrangement of light and dark that the city assumed after 11, when the restaurants had emptied, and the offices were dark, and the streets were left to the people who had nowhere else to be, and the cars of the people who were going somewhere that couldn't wait. Marcus watched it from the rear seat. He had seen this city from street level for 4 months, and from underneath it for longer than that, and it looked different from a car window, more orderly, more legible, as if the height of the seat was enough to organize what from the pavement was just noise and motion. "Where are we going?" he said. "To see someone," William said. "Who?" William looked at him. "A man who was my son's business partner, a man who has been telling me for 3 days how devastated he is." He looked out the window. "His name is Robert Crane." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Is he tall? Broad? Does he walk with his right shoulder forward?" William turned from the window and looked at the boy. In the dark of the car, with the city lights moving across his face, the silver hair and the expensive ruined coat and the 60 years, he looked like a man who had just had something confirmed that he had not let himself believe until this moment. Something that was worse than what he had believed, and also, in a specific and terrible way, better. Because it meant his son had not chosen to leave. It meant his son had been taken. "Yes," William said. "That's him." Marcus looked at the cufflink in his palm. "We need to be careful," he said. William looked at him. A 60-year-old man being told to be careful by a 10-year-old boy in a wet hoodie who had been sleeping under a bridge for 4 months. "Yes," William said. "We do." Robert Crane lived in a penthouse on the 43rd floor of a building on Ashworth Avenue. Marcus had never been to Ashworth Avenue. He had heard of it the way you heard of places that existed in a different layer of the city, above the layer he lived in, above the restaurants and the offices, and even above the apartments of the people who had apartments, in the layer where the buildings grew glass facades and the lobbies had art on the walls that was there to be art rather than to cover a mark on the plaster. The car stopped outside the building. "Wait here," William said. He looked at Marcus. "I need to go up alone first." "No," Marcus said. William looked at him. "If you go up alone," Marcus said, "and tell him what I told you, he'll know there's a witness, and then the witness becomes a problem." He looked at William steadily. "You need to go up with a plan, not just with what I told you." William looked at the boy for a long moment. The rain had lessened but not stopped. Through the car window, the building's lobby was visible, marble, a security desk, a man in a dark uniform behind it. "What kind of plan?" William said. "You need someone else to know first," Marcus said. "Someone who isn't us, someone who can't be made to disappear." He looked at the cufflink. "This is evidence. It needs to be somewhere safe before you walk into that building." William looked at him. "You've thought about this." "I've had 3 days to think about it," Marcus said. "I've been carrying the cufflink for 3 days, and I've been thinking about what to do with it for 3 days. He paused. "I almost went to the police, but the police closed the case in 48 hours. That means either they were wrong or someone made them be wrong. I didn't know which, so I waited." He looked at the building. "I was waiting for you. I knew you'd come to the bridge. People always go back to the place." William Ashford looked at a 10-year-old boy who had been sleeping under a bridge for 4 months and had spent 3 days thinking about the correct sequence of actions required to ensure that what he had witnessed resulted in justice rather than his own disappearance. He had built Ashford Capital Group from a single office on the 3rd floor of a building that no longer existed, with 2 employees and a borrowed desk, and the specific conviction that he understood how money moved better than the people who were already moving it. He had been right. He had been right for 40 years. He had been right in ways that had made him wealthy, and occasionally right in ways that had made him powerful, and once or twice right in ways that had cost him things that money and power could not compensate for. He had been right about most things. He had not been right about Robert Crane. He had hired Crane 12 years ago on the recommendation of a man he trusted, and had trusted Crane in the way you trusted people who were competent and reliable, and whose competence and reliability you had verified across 12 years of daily proximity. He had trusted him enough to make him his son's business partner when James had joined the firm. He had trusted him enough to leave them in a room together. He had been wrong about Robert Crane in the specific and irreversible way that a man was wrong about someone when the wrongness could not be corrected. He looked at the boy. "Who do you suggest we call?" William said. Marcus thought. "Do you have a lawyer? Not a company lawyer. Your own lawyer. Someone who works for you personally." "Yes." "Call them now, before we go anywhere. Tell them what I told you. Tell them about the cufflink. Tell them where we are." He looked at the building. "If something happens to us after we go in there, someone needs to know what we knew." William took out his phone. He made the call. He spoke for 4 minutes, standing slightly apart from Marcus in the car, his voice low and controlled and very precise. He told his lawyer, a woman named Catherine Voss, who answered on the second ring at 11:45 at night, which told Marcus something about the kind of lawyer she was. Everything Marcus had told him, in the order Marcus had told it. He told her about the cufflink. He told her where they were. He told her what they were about to do. When he hung up, he looked at Marcus. "She wants us to wait," he said. "She says she can have someone here in 20 minutes. "Good," Marcus said. "We wait." They waited in the car. Marcus looked at the building. William looked at his phone. After 7 minutes, William said, "Where do you sleep when it isn't under the bridge?" Marcus looked at him. "Wherever I can. There's a shelter on Delaney Street that has beds on Wednesday and Thursday. The rest of the week, I find places." "How long have you been on the streets?" 8 months. My grandmother got sick. She went to the hospital, and she didn't come out, and I didn't have anywhere to go." He said it the way he said all hard things, plainly, without inflection, the fact processed into something that lived in him, without needing to be performed. "I've been managing." William looked at the rain on the window. "You're 10 years old," he said. "Yes, sir." "And you've been managing for 8 months." "Yes, sir." William was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My son used to come to that bridge." He said it quietly, to the window rather than to Marcus. "He told me once that it was the place in the city where you could feel the most clearly that the city was just a thing, just a collection of structures, and that you were separate from it, looking at it. He said it gave him perspective." He paused. "I never understood what he meant until tonight." Marcus looked at the cufflink in his palm. "He was right," Marcus said. "About the bridge." He paused. "You see everything from underneath it, too, just from the other direction." Catherine Voss arrived in 19 minutes. She was 51 years old, with short dark hair and the particular quality of alertness that some people carried even at midnight in the rain. Not caffeinated alertness, not performed alertness, but the deep attentiveness of someone for whom paying attention was not an effort, but a state. She was accompanied by a man she introduced as her colleague, which Marcus understood to mean someone whose specific job it was to be present in situations like this one. She shook William's hand. Then she looked at Marcus. "You're Marcus," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "William told me what you saw. I'd like to hear it from you directly, if you're willing." "Yes, ma'am." She listened the way the best listeners listened, completely, without interrupting, without the small sounds people made to show they were following along. When Marcus finished, she looked at the cufflink he had placed on the car's center console. "This has been in your possession for 3 days," she said. "Yes, ma'am. I haven't let anyone else touch it." "Were your hands wet when you picked it up?" "No, ma'am. It wasn't raining yet. I was wearing gloves. I have thin gloves I wear at night." He reached into his hoodie pocket and produced them. Thin, dark, the kind of cheap knit gloves sold at corner shops for $1.50. "I use these. I've kept the cufflink wrapped in the right one since I found it." Catherine Voss looked at the gloves. Then she looked at Marcus with the expression of a woman who had been doing this work for 25 years and was recalibrating. "You preserved the chain of custody," she said. "I didn't know it was called that," Marcus said. "I just thought if it was evidence, it should only have my fingerprints on it, and my fingerprints could be checked and confirmed because I'm the one who found it." Catherine looked at William. William looked at the rain. "All right," Catherine said. "Here's what we're going to do. We are not going to that building tonight. We are going to the police, but not the precinct that handled the initial case. We're going above that. I have a contact at the district attorney's office who I've already texted. She'll meet us." She looked at Marcus. "You're going to tell her what you told me. All of it, in the same order." "Yes, ma'am." "After that, we're going to discuss where you're going to stay tonight, and tomorrow, and while this moves through the system." She looked at him steadily. "You understand why?" Marcus understood why. He was a witness. And the man who had lifted James Ashford over a bridge railing on a cold night 3 days ago walked to the middle of that same bridge twice a week and looked at the river. "Yes, ma'am," he said. The district attorney's contact was a woman named Priya Sandhu. She met them at a small conference room in the DA's office at 12:40 that morning, a plain room, institutional, with the particular quality of rooms that had absorbed a great many serious conversations and gave nothing of them back. She had a notepad and a recording device, and a cup of coffee she did not touch. Marcus gave his account for the 3rd time that night. He gave it in the same order, with the same details, at the same pace. He did not embellish. He did not simplify. When Sandhu asked him to go back and clarify something, he went back and clarified it, and what he clarified matched what he had said the first time. When he finished, Sandhu looked at the cufflink, which was now in an evidence bag that she had produced from a desk drawer, and into which Marcus had placed it with Catherine Voss and Priya Sandhu and William Ashford all watching. "Marcus," Sandhu said, "I want to ask you something directly." "Yes, ma'am." "Is there anything you're not certain about? Anything you saw that night that you're telling me, because it fits with what you think happened, rather than because you actually saw it?" Marcus thought about the question seriously. He thought about the ledge under the bridge, the cold, the voices, the gaps in the railing, the 2 figures visible through them. "I'm certain about the hands on the railing," he said. "I'm certain about the lift. I'm certain about the direction the taller man walked when he left. I'm certain about the cufflink and where I found it and what I was wearing when I picked it up." He paused. "I'm not certain about the exact words. I heard voices, but not the words, except near the end when one of them was louder. I thought I heard a name, but I'm not certain enough to say it." "What name did you think you heard?" Marcus hesitated. "I thought I heard the word Rob, but I'm not certain. I'm only telling you because you asked me what I wasn't certain about." Sandhu wrote something down. She looked at William. "Robert Crane," she said. "Yes," William said. Sandhu put her pen down. She looked at Marcus. "You did the right thing," she said. "Everything you did from the moment you found the cufflink to this moment, you did it correctly." She paused. "How old are you?" 10, ma'am." Where have you been sleeping? Under the east abutment of the Calder Street Bridge. Sandhu looked at Catherine Voss. Catherine looked at William. William looked at Marcus. Robert Crane was arrested at 6:47 the following morning. The arrest was made by officers from the Major Crimes Unit, accompanied by a representative from the District Attorney's Office. It was made quietly at Crane's building on Ashworth Avenue, before the lobby filled with the morning's traffic. He was in a suit when they came for him, which suggested he had not slept. The investigation that followed was not quick. These things were not quick. But they were thorough, in the way that investigations became thorough when the District Attorney's Office was involved from the beginning, and when the evidence had been handled correctly from the moment of discovery, and when the witness was a 10-year-old boy whose account had not changed by a single detail across 4 separate tellings to 4 separate people over the course of one night. What emerged over the weeks that followed was this. James Ashford had discovered, 3 months before his death, that Robert Crane had been moving money from Ashford Capital Group through a series of structures that were designed to obscure the movement. Not a small amount. The kind of amount that, if discovered and prosecuted, would mean the end of Robert Crane's life as he had constructed it. James had confronted him privately, which was the kind of mistake that young men made when they trusted that the people they had worked beside for 4 years were the people they appeared to be. He had been wrong about Robert Crane in the specific way you could only be wrong about someone if you had never needed to be afraid of them before. Marcus would learn most of this later. Not all at once, in pieces, the way you learned things when you were 10 years old and the adults around you were making decisions about how much to tell you and when. He learned it in the 3 weeks he spent in Catherine Voss's guest room while things were arranged. He learned it in the conversations William Ashford had with him, not the details of the case, which were properly withheld, but the human shape of what had happened, because William had decided that a boy who had slept under a bridge for 4 months and spent 3 days making sure he did the right thing with what he knew deserved to understand why it mattered. He learned about James, who had liked bridges because of what you could see from them, who had been 26 and had been, William said, without qualification or the specific hesitation parents sometimes used when they didn't want to claim too much, a good man, who had trusted the wrong person and had not deserved what that trust cost him. Marcus thought about the hands on the railing. He thought about them often in the 3 weeks in Catherine Voss's guest room and after. The hands holding on. He was glad he had been there. He was glad he had stayed. The shelter on Delaney Street had a social worker named Bernard Collins who had been doing the job for 18 years and who had, in those 18 years, developed the particular patience of someone who had learned that solutions arrived slowly and that pushing them arrived faster was usually how you prevented them from arriving at all. William Ashford called Bernard Collins on the 4th day after Marcus moved into Catherine Voss's guest room. The call lasted 40 minutes. Bernard called Marcus into his office the following Tuesday and sat across from him at his desk with his hands folded and said, "Mr. Ashford has offered to fund a placement for you, a proper one, a family, a room, a school. Not temporary. He's also offered to fund your education from this point forward." He looked at Marcus steadily. "This is his offer. It's not a condition of anything. It doesn't change what you did or what you'll be asked to do as a witness. It's separate." He paused. "What do you think?" Marcus thought about the guest room at Catherine Voss's house, which had a window that faced east and let in the morning light before anything else in the room. He thought about the bridge abutment. He thought about 4 months of finding places and 8 months before that of managing. He thought about James Ashford's hands on the railing. "Is the family good?" he said. "I've worked with them for 3 years," Bernard said. "They're good. Is the school near the bridge?" Bernard looked at him. "Why?" Because I'd like to be able to go there sometimes, Marcus said. In the morning. He looked at the window of Bernard's office. He was right about the bridge. You can see things clearly from there. He paused. I'd like to keep seeing things clearly. Bernard looked at the boy across the desk from him. He had been doing this for 18 years. He had sat across from a great many children in a great many difficult circumstances. He had learned not to be surprised. He was slightly surprised. The school is 4 blocks from the bridge, he said. Marcus nodded. Okay, he said. Yes. Tell him yes. The trial, when it came, lasted 11 days. Marcus testified on the 4th day. He wore a shirt that Mrs. Reed had ironed the night before and shoes that had been bought for the occasion and which fit properly, which was something Marcus noticed in the specific way that a person noticed things that had previously been otherwise. He sat in the witness box and he gave his account for the 5th time, in the same order, with the same details, and when the defense attorney asked him questions that were designed to suggest that a 10-year-old boy sleeping under a bridge was not a reliable witness, Marcus answered each one calmly and in full, and the answers were the same answers he had given on the bridge, in the rain, and in the car, and in the DA's office, and in the conference room. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Robert Crane was convicted on all counts. Marcus was not in the courtroom for the verdict either. He had decided he did not need to be. He had done his part, which was to see clearly and speak truly and not look away, and the rest of it belonged to the people whose job the rest of it was. On the morning William Ashford testified at the preliminary hearing, Marcus was not in the courtroom. He was at the bridge. He had walked there from the house on Clement Street, where he had been living for 3 weeks with a family named the Reeds, who had a dog named Gordon, and a kitchen that smelled of bread, and a room at the back with an east-facing window. He stood at the east abutment, not under it, above it, on the walkway, at the place where the railing was. He looked at the river below. He looked at the city beyond the river, which from this height had the quality James Ashford had described: legible, ordered, a thing you could look at rather than a thing you were inside. He thought about what he had seen from below, the gaps in the railing, the 2 figures, the hands. He thought about the cufflink in his glove pocket for 3 days, about the rain on the bridge the night he had finally found William Ashford at the railing, about the moment in the car when he had said, "We need to be careful," and the man had listened. He thought about his grandmother, who had died in the hospital 8 months ago, and who had taught him, in the 10 years before that, to look at things carefully and to say what he saw and to not look away from things that needed to be looked at. She had not told him what to do when what you looked at was something this serious, but he thought she would have told him the same thing she had always told him, which was that looking carefully and speaking truly and not looking away were the only things a person was ever really responsible for. He had looked, he had spoken, he had not looked away. The river moved below him in the morning light, cold and indifferent and moving, the way rivers moved regardless of what happened on the bridges above them. The city stretched beyond it, beginning its day. A bus crossed the bridge behind him, its engine a low, familiar sound. Marcus put both hands on the iron railing. He looked at the river. Then he turned and walked back toward the school, 4 blocks away, where he was expected at 8:30 and where he intended to arrive on time.